Alright, welcome everyone. So this is going to be another tutorial for Unity. So I've been gone for a while, sorry about that. I've been taking some classes in programming and that was just craziness. Might have to revisit, but that's just what happens. Keep trying, don't give up. Okay? So what we got here is what I call the Sentry project. So we have a enemy object here that will constantly track your position, and as you see as I play here, the sentry doesn't shoot at you, but it tracks. So that'll be in another video where maybe it shoots projectiles at you and see how it swivels back and forth. And you know, it's not a very complex object. You know, I just imported it from Maya, but it's constantly tracking your position. This could be used for, you know, maybe a non-playable character that's constantly following your position. If you add maybe velocity to this would actually chase after you, which would be kind of super scary, you know, be like you're being attacked by a robot. So that's what we have here, and I'll show you how to build this. Okay, so I only had two objects, so the barrel and the base of the gun. Okay, so we have the gun and the base, which is the gun's the barrel. I'll just make sure for just the sake of simplicity, so I don't mess you guys up. And I'll put this as Sentry Gun Barrel GRP group. Okay. And I'm keeping this the same because this is like the parent group, but this is the base of the gun itself. So the gun swivels on the ground, but not from the top. Okay, that's a whole other. That could be a whole other configuration. Okay, so we have two main parts, or two groups. The first group, which contains everything. The second group that contains the barrel of the sentry, and then we have the sentry base of the gun. You know, the pedestal or whatever you would call it. It could be a tripod, you know, or whatever. But that will contain the others. But this will contain, you know, the base itself, you know, right here. Okay. This will hold the base of the gun. The barrel, the sentry. Yeah, sorry. This will contain the base of the sentry. Okay, and this will contain the base itself. All right. So that's what we have here. Okay, and this took a little bit of self-alignment. So there was a double transform, and that's what we had a problem with. And sorry, I'm thinking real quick. Okay, anyways, we're 3 minutes into this. So the main placeholder will have the Sentry Rotate script attached, okay? And we'll go into that in a second. Just keep in mind that all these had some kind of numbers. Ignore these two, but these two had numbers translates. I don't know why that happened during the import, but I couldn't get rid of it, and I was going to do it again. So I threw each one of these into an empty game object that acts as like a group, okay, or like a folder. Okay, this one will be the main folder, this one will be the second folder, and each on the outside each will contain one file, which is the base and the barrel. Okay, but these act like leaders, so these are your leaders. These tell the two objects this is where you will go. Okay, now the main group will have a rigid body, and so we have all the positions for this main group will be frozen. All the rotates will be frozen except for Y, because we want it to track back and forth. This one will have all the rotations frozen, but the positions will not be frozen for the rigid body. So this will have a second rigid body just for itself. This third child object, which is the barrel, that will have another rigid body, and all the positions will be frozen, but the rotates will be allowed to move on their own. And then this will be just like a geometry object, which is the barrel itself, but it's just its geometry. We don't need a rigid body for this, okay? Now, if we close them all out, well, not close, but collapse, you'll see a y-axis lock. And that's going to override what you'll see in the script right now, okay? So we have a script attached to the main group itself, and basically a position to lock the player to, to have the sentry lock to the player, and what parts to move and what parts to kind of cancel out in a way. You'll see what I mean right now. So this is the script here. This is based on 4 public variables. We have 3 transforms, which are coordinates. 1 for the player. This will tell the gun to basically, hey, pay attention to the player, or swivel towards the player, in a sense. And these 2 are using the positions of the sentry base and the sentry barrel, and tell them, hey, lock on this position, basically move in accordance of a particular axis, or so just like a gun is on a pedestal, say, hey, I need for you to lock onto that, but only move in that direction because you're bolted down, okay? Alright, so in order to do that, we need to override this by creating a new vector 3 target position. And if you want to think about vector 3s, you're wondering, like, what are those? Think of it like map coordinates, or in a sense a flat x and y position, only 2 axes. Vector 3 would be as if you're using map coordinates, but at the same time you're telling somebody how high a position is. So x, y, and z, not just x and z. Okay? That way the gun could swivel up and down, and yeah. Okay? But we have to override it, and we have to tell it which ones to follow, which ones to follow in another particular direction. So we have x, y, and z, and we tell this new vector 3, hey, I want you to follow the player on position x. And same thing for position z. You just say, hey, I want you to follow the player. The y, though, the elevation or the height, we tell it to basically say, hey, ignore the player, but I want you to literally follow this other object I predetermined, which you'll find up here, and that's why we have this here. Okay, and that object is just a straight up empty game object that you'll parent to your sentry group, which you'll see here. So this is the group itself. You'll find it outside with the base and all the other contents of the sentry with itself paired together. So you can position that really in any sense anywhere. You might have to move it around, move it, or don't rotate. I would say just move it. Okay, and then going back, so that's what this is going to be here. You just say, hey, pay attention to that. Just ignore the player for the y, for the height. Okay. That way, when we get to the base of the sentry, literally it's only going to look at the player x and the player z. In theory, it is looking at the y, the elevation, but it's not moving. It's literally at a complete level, and that's why you might have to adjust the height of the empty game object that's parented to the sentry group itself. Okay, so there's going to be some trial and error. So that's what we have for the base. You literally throw in the variable here. You just tell the sentry, the base of the sentry, hey, I want you to look at this new vector 3 that we established. Okay, and don't pay attention to this. This was development work. So now the barrel of the sentry, we want it to constantly look at the player, no matter what. We're not going to override it. We just tell it, hey, I need for you to move and point at the player at all times. So in reality, both the base and the barrel are theoretically moving. It's just the base ignores the height elevation of the player, so it doesn't rock up and down. If you had more parts of the gun, of the sentry, maybe that may be different, but this is what we have here. So, and like I said, that's pretty much what we have for this. Now, like I said, you might have to realign this on your own. As you can see, this is even a little bit off kilter, but as soon as I hit play, it will self-align. All the parts are moving together, and they're pointing literally at the player. And, you know, it changes height and elevation. So there may be some trial and error that you might have to do. Try to follow this hierarchy format. And like I said, if you have any questions, rewind this first. And, you know, like I said, it's a complicated project, so you might have to ask me some questions, and I don't mind answering. It may take a while for me to answer because I'm so busy right now with different things. There are no tags required, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, probably in the next project, I'll have like a safe zone and just have the sentry moving back and forth following like a dummy object, like another spear that's invisible. And then I'll have it change like that player variable to me if I cross a certain boundary. And if I go back behind the boundary, then it goes back to, you know, it disarms itself and goes back in patrol mode. But the moment you cross into, you know, its territory, it starts, you know, maybe it starts attacking, you know, or shooting, you know, projectiles at you. We'll see what happens. So, like I said, thank you very much for everything. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, please ask me, because I want to help you out with this. But this can go into other things. This can literally go into non-playable characters. This can go into enemies that maybe follow your player. Maybe I'll go into that too. Maybe I'll add wheels to this thing and have it constantly track me, you know, as I, you know, run for my life from a moving sentry robot or something. And, you know, we'll see what happens. But anyways, thank you very much.